I am the Special Rapporteur of the United Nations on Independence of Judges and Lawyers. To be an independent judge and/or lawyer requires many elements, but perhaps the most important and crucial one is integrity. Integrity regarding many challenges that may happen along the activity of a judge. One of them, of course, is the challenge and the threat of corruption. Any step that is taken inside national judiciaries, or better on, worldwide approach like the one UNODC is trying to implement now, is a very important step so to prevent judges that forget about integrity and gives a more positive and optimistic approach about what these judges may do to fulfill their role. One of the major problems the world is facing, all around the world, is the big challenge and threat of corruption and of organized crime. Several times corruption is directly connected to organized crime. So when you imagine that the main instruments that society have to protect themselves from these crimes like corruption and organized crime, which are the judges and lawyers, one major threat for society is that this kind of crime penetrates inside the judiciaries in the world. So to prevent that and to strengthen the capacities of the judiciary to confront these major attacks against democracy, against human rights, which is corruption and organized crime, is a crucial matter to do now in the 21st century. So we find a very close connection between instruments like the International Convention Against Corruption and Human Rights, which is mentioned, by the way, in the Convention in several paragraphs, as a bridge that I think should be consistently built between people that are involved in both concerns, human rights and fight against corruption. So this program, I think, gives that fantastic possibility to rescue and support good experiences and to imagine the ways to prevent that these big challenges infiltrate themselves inside the judiciaries in the world. There are many countries in the world, realities are different, and there is no situation that can be copied from one country to the other. However, there are several experiences and several things that are being done in many countries that in some cases they stayed inside the borders of each country. So the others' experiences, and perhaps mainly the other successful and positive experiences, is a thing that in a way that if it is better disseminated and known, it is much easier to follow others' experiences, to confront corruption, to strengthen independence and transparency, than to invent methodologies that in many cases had been already implemented in many countries successfully. So this way in which judges can share experiences, can imagine how to respond better to these threats, is perhaps the best way to prepare judges and judiciaries to respond to this problem, because nobody will be able to write a manual or a dictionary of how to defeat corruption, but what serves mainly is positive experiences. I am sure there are many positive experiences in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Europe, United States, that can be very useful. Obviously, the first and most clear group to be benefited by this program are judges. Judges, I include among judges public prosecutors, which play in many countries similar roles. But in a whole, really, the big benefit is society, citizens as a whole, because judges, at the end of the day, are a minority in the society. But if judges perform appropriately the role, if judges are adequately vaccinated against corruption, they perform the role with integrity, that is one of the major successes for society. Transparency as an example, and the way in which society can begin to give a better legitimacy, a better support to a judiciary that gives citizens a guarantee that if someone would protect themselves against corruption, against organized crime, citizens may trust in the judiciary because they are transparent, because they are consistent, because they are independent. That is one of the major tasks that I have planned in my role as a Special Rapporteur on independence of judges and lawyers, how to strengthen their capacities to confront corruption, which of course requires not only goodwill and organization by the judges, requires in many cases political support, budgetary support, appropriate legal decisions, but at the core question is if the judges are in position to maintain their independence and especially their integrity, and I am really confident that this is a task that can be positively achieved in all countries in the world. Well, there are several ways, no? Because the traditional ways to participate in a global network were seminars in which you had to travel from one place to the other, which requires time, requires economic resources. Of course, the personal contact is difficult to compare with any other way that we can establish contact between human beings. But right now, we have so huge technical possibilities to contact through Skype, through meetings that take place by internet, through papers that can circulate all around the world in different languages. So I think that the ways through which this network could work and be very, very lively are several. But in this context, really, this program would need the support of local organizations, of judges and lawyers, which know how to establish real local networks so that this program reaches not only the major leaders that speak the very language or travel all around the world, but the common judges, which in many cases are working with big effort, with a small amount of resources, by which I am sure that this program will give many of them very strong instruments to strengthen their capacities and their abilities and their integrity, which is even better than specific technicalities or knowledge of an article in the law, because at the end of the day, a judge forgets what the article says. He or she can look for that. But integrity is a thing that has to do with the soul. Personal integrity is a question that has to be consistently repeated, and this network can give many people examples of eventual leaders of these principles that can serve as a path to follow and as a positive path to follow.